Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Vinnie here, and today I'm going to show you how to replace your rear brakes on a 2018 to 2021 Subaru Crosstrek. This procedure will be pretty similar to many other year model Subarus. All right, and so for this job, you're going to obviously need the rotors and the brake pads. You're going to need a big pair of channel locks, a wire brush for cleaning off any dust, a hammer, a small flathead or pry bar. You're gonna want 3/8 ratchet and a 3/8 breaker bar, 1/2-inch breaker bar. I have an assortment of 3/8 extensions and swivels. You may or may not need that. I have a 14 and a 17 millimeter wrench. I have a 1/2-inch and a 3/8 torque wrench. Optionally, you may need some power lube and a small pick. I'll show you what that's for later. And of course, some brake grease and rags. Optionally, I have an impact gun, and we'll have a 3/8 and a 1/2-inch impact driver for that, with a 3/8 14 millimeter and a 17 millimeter socket, and then a 1/2-inch 19 millimeter socket for the lug nuts. You're gonna want a set of jack stands and a car jack, and then either knee pads or a pad for your knees if you're kneeling down on the ground like I am. And then of course, last but not least, you're gonna want some safety glasses. I say this in every video, but it's a lot cheaper to replace the pair of glasses than it is your eyes, as well as it's a lot cheaper to replace knee pads than it is your knees later on in life. So make sure you do safety first. And you guys can find links in the description for all the tools and parts used in this video. All right, first step, if you're doing this on the ground like I am, you wanna park the vehicle on a level surface. You're gonna bring your car jack and a jack stand over to the right rear side of the vehicle, because we're gonna be showing you guys the right rear side today. And you're gonna wanna put the car jack under the pinch weld, and then the jack stand, once the car's jacked up, will slide under there for an extra safety precaution. So I'm gonna begin to jack this up, but we're gonna stop before the wheel comes off the ground so we can break our lug nuts free. Next, you can get your 1/2-inch breaker bar with a 19 millimeter socket, and we can go ahead and break the lug nuts free. You also wanna make sure that your parking brake is not engaged. All right, now with the lug nuts broken free, we can begin jacking the vehicle off the ground. And then once it's off the ground, we can place our jack stand under here. Now I'm just gonna lower my jack a little bit so the car sits on that jack stand, and then I'm gonna give a half pump to the jack itself. So now the weight's kind of between both of these. No matter what, one will save the other. Now you can grab your impact gun with the 1/2-inch drive and your 19 millimeter socket, and we can go ahead and remove the lug nuts and the wheel. All right, and I just want to show you guys the placement of the car jack and the jack stands. Right here is your pinch weld, and this is where you typically lift the vehicle up. All right, now with the wheel off, the next step is going to be to remove the two 14 millimeter bolts that holds on the caliper to the caliper bracket. You can use a 14 millimeter wrench here, and sometimes this bolt right here on the other side spins, and that's a 19 millimeter. So you could get a 19 millimeter wrench and put it on there if that starts to spin. You're gonna break these two 14s loose and remove them. Then you can wiggle out the caliper, and we could just sit that right on top. Next, get your flathead or your small pry bar, and you can pry out the brake pads. Now take note, on that inside pad, you have the brake wear indicator or the squealer. So when we go to put our new pads in, you wanna make sure that's on the bottom on the inside pad. And just to give you a quick look, it looks like we definitely got our money's worth out of these brake pads. They are very low. Next, you can get your 3/8 ratchet with a 17 millimeter socket, and we're gonna remove the two 17 millimeter bolts that holds the brake caliper bracket to the vehicle. And with those two 17 millimeters removed, the caliper bracket should just come right off. All right, next we're gonna be removing the rotor. Since we have new ones, we're just gonna get our hammer, and you can normally bang it on the top hat part, which is this upper rim. And if you're gonna do that, you can put some lug nuts on the studs around where you're gonna bang so you don't accidentally hit the threads. You tap that on both sides. And if it still doesn't break free and you are replacing this, you can bang along where the pads run. But if you are not replacing this rotor, then never bang in this spot because that will mess up where the pads grab the rotor. But since we're replacing this one, that's what I'm gonna do. All right, and now it's free. All right, now I just want to do a quick side-by-side comparison. On our left side, we have our old set of pads and rotors, and on our right, we obviously have our new set of pads and rotors. As you can see, the brake pads are super low, and here's our new beefy brake pads. The rotors are just slightly different. These are drilled and slotted rotors, which can, in some instances, add some performance to the vehicle's braking system. Also want to note that on these new set of rotors, if they're drilled and slotted, they're actually going to be directional. So there's going to be a sticker on there and it shows you rear passenger side. You definitely want to install these correctly, otherwise they will not operate correctly. And then before we go to install the new rotors, you want to make sure that you take out this rubber dust boot. This is for your parking brake adjustment. This is just a little dust boot cover. So we're going to pop that out and place that in our new rotor. Again, you can find links in the description for all the tools and parts used in this video. And with all that said, let's get into installing the new stuff. All right, we can grab our new rotor and install that back onto the vehicle. All right, next we can take apart the caliper bracket. We're gonna clean this up, re-grease it, and get it prepared to go back on the vehicle. So the first step that I like to do, lay out a little rag, and you can pull out these two pins. Make sure you don't mix these up because sometimes they're different. Just gonna sit that there. Sit this one there, and we'll clean the grease off. All right, just want to show you guys, the pins are different on these. So this is your bottom pin, and this is the top pin for the passenger side rear caliper. All right, next step, you want to get some brake grease, and we're going to coat both of the pins with brake grease and then reinstall them. Should look like that. Put that one in. All right, reinstall that. And then what you're going to want to do is push these pins in and pinch this boot. Try to let any air bubbles out, and then we can spin the bolt to make sure that the grease is distributed evenly. You hear those little bubbles coming out. That's those little air pockets. And you want to make sure that both pins can go in and out pretty easily as well. Wipe off any excess grease, and you should be good to go there. All right, next step, you can grab your flathead or small pry bar and take off these brake pad clips. We're gonna replace these because the new set came with new ones. And so if you don't have new ones, then you can skip this step and leave these on. But since we have new ones, we're gonna replace them. So you're gonna get your pry bar under there, and they should just pry out just like that. Once those are removed, you get your wire brush, and you're gonna clean these slots where that bracket sat. And then once that's clean, you can get some brake grease, and you want to put some brake grease in those slots. Make sure you wipe off any excess brake grease. All right, then next you can get your new brake pad brackets, and they should slide right on top of that spot, and then you're just gonna have to press them in. Just like that. Make sure you press these down firmly to confirm that they're fully seated into the brake caliper bracket. All right, next get some brake grease, and we're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna wanna coat the inside where these pads are gonna sit with some brake grease. All right, next step, you're gonna remount the caliper bracket. So we're gonna slide this back on and get our 17mm bolts in there. Then next you want to grab your 3/8 torque wrench. We're going to set this to 81 foot-pounds and put our 17mm socket on there. Torque these down to 81 foot-pounds. Next we can get our brake pads. We're going to add some grease just right on these ears, on the tips of each brake pad. And we're going to do it to both brake pads. Okay, now once you have both brake pads greased on the ears or the ends of the pads, you can go ahead and install those. So this outside pad does not have a brake wear indicator or brake pad indicator, or what they call a squealer. The inside pad does. So that's this thing right here. So as your pad wears down and becomes thinner, this little metal tab will eventually scrape on the rotor to let you know that your brake pads are really low and need to be replaced very soon. So we're gonna go ahead and install this one on the inside. Make sure that squealer is on the bottom. Next, we're gonna take the caliper and we're gonna sit it up here like that. This is an optional step, but I like to do this as a good practice. I get this pick and very carefully peel this boot back just a little bit. And then I get my power lube and I squirt a little bit in there. And that's just gonna help prevent rust and this little piston in here from freezing up over time. Then I'm gonna get an old brake pad and sit it right in that slot. And then I get my big pair of channel locks and I compress that piston back in to the caliper very slowly. You don't wanna go fast on this. You wanna make sure that goes in evenly. And it'll stop once it's fully in. And then I just pull up on the boot a little bit to let any air out. Now you can go ahead, flip the caliper back over, ensure that this brake line here is not twisted, and then you can reinstall this onto the caliper bracket. Now you might have to push these 14mm slide pins in to get the bracket and the caliper to line up. Once that's on, you can get your 14mm bolts and reinstall those. Next, you're gonna get your 3/8 torque wrench with your 14mm socket. You wanna set the torque wrench to 20 foot-pounds, and we're gonna tighten both of these 14mm bolts down to 20 foot-pounds of torque. And once you have that all set, we can reinstall the wheel. Always start your lug nuts by hand. You don't want to cross thread these, otherwise you're going to have to watch my other YouTube video on how to fix a broken wheel stud. All right, now that they're all started by hand, I'm going to take my impact gun and just gently tighten all of these. And then we're going to lower the vehicle back down halfway till the tire touches the ground, and we'll torque them with a torque wrench to the correct torque specs. We're going to tighten these in a star pattern. All right, so I'm gonna jack the car up, remove the jack stand. Now we're gonna lower the vehicle just till the wheel touches the ground. Now we're gonna grab our 1/2-inch torque wrench, set that to 90 foot-pounds, and then you wanna put your 19mm socket on here, and we're gonna go ahead and torque these lug nuts down. Again, this is 90 foot-pounds, and you're gonna wanna do this in a star pattern. All right, now we can lower the vehicle fully. All right, now you're gonna do the exact same procedure to the other side of the vehicle, and once that's complete, you're gonna wanna come in here and pump the brake pedal a good few times until it gets stiff. And that's just gonna ensure that the brake pads and everything and all the fluid is where it needs to be before you start driving the vehicle. All right, guys, and that's about it. That's how you replace your rear brakes on a 2018 to 2021 Subaru Crosstrek. If you guys have any questions at all, leave them down in the comments. I will get back to you. If this video helped you guys out, please leave me a like. And if you're looking for more of this kind of content, then hit that subscribe button, because there'll be plenty more videos coming your way. Appreciate you guys sticking through on this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one.